Alright, so we're going to look at Gishath, the sun's avatar. I don't have a reference on screen, unfortunately, but I do have one off screen that I can use. And we'll start going with there. So Gishath is a gargantuan beast. Alright, they have a 16 for AC, and they have, let's see here, 14 D20 with 18 Constitution, 16 Wisdom, 6 Charisma, and should be a CR 10. There is our basic information. And then looking at the skills for Gishath, we have 4 saves in Strength, Constitution, Wisdom, and Charisma. So we'll throw that in for a +2 AC bonus. And that's it for Gishath. Nothing else in terms of traits or skills anyways. But this beast does have legendary resistances of 3 per day for an extra 60 hit points. And then let's see here, multi-attacks. Nothing too crazy for this monster, but it's going to be an interesting one nonetheless. Alright, so multi-attack. Gishath makes 2 attacks, one with its bite and one with its stomp or tail. It can't make both attacks against the same target. Not a big deal. And for its bite, it has an 11 attack bonus. So we'll make sure to put that in now. A wink. And then for the first attack and its bite, it's going to deal 39.5 average damage on its piercing damage bite. And then if the target is large or smaller, it must succeed on a dex save or be grappled. Until the end of the turn, the target is restrained. Alright, so we can throw in the Constrict here for the grappling effect of +1 AC bonus. And then we have Swallow. So Gishath makes 1 bite attack against a large or small creature. And then we'll swallow stuff. So we can actually code down into the Swallow because I fixed it now. And let's see here, so Swallow will be adding in, let's see here, 21 acid damage at the start of each of Gishath's turns. Now, it doesn't seem to be that there's any limit. If the attack hits, that creature takes the bite's damage and is swallowed. Alright, so in theory, in the first 3 rounds of combat, round 1, Gishath would bite. And then on round 2, Gishath would probably swallow, which means the swallow damage would come into play with another bite attack. And then we would deal 2 rounds of acid damage to 2 targets because there's no limit on the amount of targets that Gishath can have inside of its belly. So we would then say, alright, 21 points of damage times 2 rounds times 2 players. We're looking at a possible plus 112 damage per round for those 2 targets in those 2 rounds. So depending on what happens with the legendary actions, we're going to look at some interesting things here. We also have Stomp, which is another attack. And we have, let's see here, plus 11 to hit, plus 29.5 points of damage, and possibly knocking someone prone, which may or may not happen. And then the tail attack will be 25 points of damage. Now, the multi-attack will end up being, what is it? 1 bite and a stomp or a tail. So we're just going to use the 2 highest ones here. And the multi-attack will be the bite plus the stomp, I believe it was, for a total of 69 average damage. Now let's take a look at what we have for legendary actions. Gishath can make 1 stomp or tail attack. Alright, so we will just take the stomp, since the stomp was doing more damage, and multiply that times 3. And then legendary action 2, the roar. Each creature that is within 120 feet of Gishath can hear it, must succeed on a save or be frightened. It's helpful, but Gishath might be better off just attacking rather than roaring and wasting 2 of its 3 legendary actions. And since it's not part of the actual rotation, like dragons can do a roar, frighten a bunch of players, and then go into their attacks, I'm going to suggest that we skip the roar and the fear effects. We could potentially come back to that later if we find that there's something off with it. So what are we looking at here for rounds 1 through 3? Well, round 1 will end up being the multi-attack to bite and stomp, plus a bunch of extra stomps. So that'll be round 1. Round 2 will have to be another bite attack to swallow, plus the legendary actions. And then round 3 will be, let's see here, we would say just another repeat of round 1 then. And then it would swallow on the next round. I've taken the swallow down because I think that was the correct way to do this because of how swallow works and the attack rotation. What in the world? Gishath is supposed to be a CR 10, but I'm pulling a CR 19 somehow. Let me see what I might be doing wrong here. Let's take off the swallow damage from here. I'm going to have to go with this because of what's going on here. Round 1, Gishath is going to bite. And it's going to deal 39 points of damage, followed up with a stomp from its multi-attack for another 29 points of damage. And then it can do legendary actions. And at this point, I would say, use all 3 of your legendary actions to make a stomp or a tail attack. That would be an additional 88.5 points of damage. So round 1, we're looking at roughly 157 points of damage. On round 2, Gishath would then do the swallow, which means they have to bite again, because Gishath makes 1 bite attack against a larger, smaller creature it's grappling, which would have been from round 1, and then swallows it, and deals 2 rounds of damage in the next 2 rounds of combat. So technically rounds 3 and 4, Gishath is dealing acid damage to the target in his belly. On top of that, not only is Gishath swallowing a creature after a bite, it's also doing its legendary actions again of stomping or tail whipping. And then round 3 is just a repeat of round 1, where it's going to bite another target, stomp or tail attack, and then stomp and tail attack a whole bunch of other times again for this extra amount of damage. And then on top of that, we're looking at an extra 56 points of acid damage from the swallowed creature. The only other thing I could suggest is maybe using the DC from the swallow, but I wouldn't, because Gishath is doing more damage from its attacks, its physical attacks, than just the swallow damage. So I would keep the attack bonus here at 11. Technically, Gishath is a CR 19 monster. With a DCR of 13 and an OCR of 24, this is absurdly out of balance. This is another extremely high out of balance monster. So with that, Gishath is a CR 19 monster, unlike its printed CR 10. Don't know where they got that from. And just because I keep forgetting to do this, let me shift the expected CR 10 to 19 and see if that makes any changes here. Okay, that shifts a little bit and actually makes it worse. Because now, if we shift the expected CR to 19, the legendary resistance goes from 60 to 90 hit points, shifts the DCR up to a 15, and now Gishath is actually a CR 20. This is a CR 20.